what time it is, guys. It is trade season. The NBA moratorium lifts, I think, on 11/22 officially, but this is at noon today is when trades can be discussed.
Yes.
And basically executed on. So we have the Oklahoma City Thunder making two very big splashes, literally at the buzzer. And based on the way that Woj has been tweeting, it's the only thing that's actually happened today. It's bad. So the first move that we see is that the Oklahoma City Thunder sent Dennis Schroder over to the Los Angeles Lakers for Danny Green and the 28th draft pick.
Yes.
Let's start there. What you think about it?
I think it's I think it works for both sides. It really does, because clearly the Thunder, they're looking to add draft capital in the midst of this rebuild, which somewhat began last season. I mean, it doesn't seem that way, but to me it actually did, where they knew they were going in a different direction. So I think it's a really good trade. I mean, for the Lakers, especially, we know Dennis Schroder around here very well in terms of how hard of a worker he is, how good of a teammate he is, his ability to score. I mean, he's been a starting point guard on the team before when he was with the Atlanta Hawks, and he was, number 2 in 6 Man of the Year voting this season.
Yep.
So a really solid player whenever he's on the court, can play within an offensive structure. And this is exactly what they need. It's a cheaper option as opposed to, what many of the pundits said, them going after Chris Paul or someone of that ilk who was available. So I really like this move for him, for the Lakers, and I think they needed to do this because it's turned into an arms race. The first year that we got back to dynamic duo basketball, where if you had the best duo, and the Lakers did, you win the championship. Now it's whoever can get to a big three first next. Now, Granted, Schroeder is not the third of a big three, but he gives them a big 2.5. He's a really solid player. Definite upgrade from what they had at that position last year, even though playoff Rondo did show up and he was an instrumental part of them winning the championship. But I really like this for both sides, and they probably have been discussing this for far longer than we knew. Which is why this came down so quickly.
Yep. And it looked like that's what Oklahoma City had planned. They were going to move Schroeder, even though Dennis did not want to leave, and probably Presti didn't want him to leave either. But he probably, had the professional conversation like he's done with the next trade we're going to talk about. Probably walked up to Dennis and said, "Look, man, we're going to have to go through a rebuild. If you're willing to stay, we're cool. But if I can get you to a contender, I'm going to send you to a contender because I'm just that nice of a guy." At least that's what it seems like.
Right.
And so from there, we have the next trade, which is the point guard, as a lot of people like to call him.
They call him that? I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what he was called for years. Good old Chris Paul, point guard formerly for Oklahoma City Thunder. Him and Abdul Nader were traded to the Phoenix Suns for Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, Jalen LeCue, and in a 2022 first round pick. So, this was, of course, announced by Woj on Twitter, and he mentioned that the Thunder worked with Chris Paul's reps at CAA to get him to his preferred destination. And so, of course, Presti has a history of doing that for his players. Russell Westbrook was an example. Same thing with Carmelo Anthony. And he did that for Paul George. So he worked with them, was able to get what they wanted. What did you think about that haul in that trade?
DeAndre Ayton, who is going into his third season as a Phoenix Sun player, former number 1 pick. If he can be close to what just his style of play, I mean, he doesn't play like Embiid or the Big Cat in Minnesota because they can pop out and actually shoot the ball some. But if he can be somewhat of a dominant force in the middle of that offense and on defense, pair it with Devin Booker, who can shoot the lights out, on a team who was 8-0 in the bubble, who I was just hoping that they would get a chance to be in the playoffs. They didn't. And Chris Paul, if he can stay healthy, Hall of Fame point guard, then that could be the makings of a force to be reckoned with. Maybe not this season, but the next season, once they've had a season to gel. Assuming that the Chris Paul they're getting is the Chris Paul who is more easily able to be gotten along with, as opposed to the Chris Paul who clashed with teammates his second and third destination when he was a Clipper and when he was Houston Rocket. So I really, really like this trade. Again, knowing what the plan is for Oklahoma City, then this is just a part of that plan. It makes sense. But for the Suns, and I was somewhat thrown off by this because I would think that he would want to go to a more established contender. But when Chris Paul is the Chris Paul that he was last season, then he can take your team and turn them into a playoff team or turn them into a contender, because Devin Booker is better than any player that Oklahoma City had last season, as is DeAndre Ayton. Yeah. So to be able to shepherd and teach and guide those young players, and with his ability in the clutch, which will help them to, I guess, learn to be more comfortable in those kind of situations, even though I would trust Devin Booker with the ball in his hands in the clutch, I think that – I don't know where they rank because I haven't looked at all the teams yet. I need to wait till all this shakes out to see where they stand. But this is going to give them something that they maybe haven't had since the Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire days, which is a team that's not only fun to watch, but a team that can actually get past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're gonna be very competitive. I mean, look at it. Look at the Pacific. You have with the Lakers, the Clippers, now the Suns, and the Warriors coming back, and they should be full strength.
Well, I know how you. Right. Every time I say the Nuggets, every time I say that name, you give me that look.
Yeah, I have to, but at the same time, you remember the Nuggets are not Pacific. I'm talking about just their division. Look at their division. You get 4 teams in that division is going to be ridiculous.
Right.
The Suns were 2 games away from making the playoffs this year with the roster they have. Now they got a point guard who could probably get them at least a 4 seed. Because Devin Booker has just all he's ever needed was a point guard to distribute, and he also can play point. So you can give Chris Paul opportunities to play off the ball, which he actually likes to do a lot more than we think, because he can orchestrate a lot more whenever everybody is when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. He can start directing people, and like you said, he can do the coaching on the court. So I think it's huge. Now, as far as the haul goes, I think Oklahoma City could have definitely done better if they went east, sent him to like the Knicks or something like that. But I understand why. Like I mentioned in here, Woj stated that they worked closely with Chris Paul's people to get him where he desired to go, that's a loyalty thing that's very rare in this sport. And at the same time, hopefully in the end it works. Hopefully it gives him good juju.
It's a genius move. It's something that he has to do because he's in one of the smallest markets in the NBA, GM Sam Presti, because what that message communicates to everyone else in the league is if for whatever reason you end up in Oklahoma City, obviously very few players prefer destinations, then if you don't like it, most likely the GM will work with you to get you where you want to be. But that's the thing. When players actually do come here and play here, they really like it more than they ever thought that they would. So that's, I guess, like this, it's kind of manipulation in a way. But it's what he has to do in order to be able to get other players in here. So having seen him do that now with Chris Paul, doing it before with Paul George and Russell Westbrook, I see what he's doing there, and I really like that.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. I like the way that he is. Like you said, he's doing it because he knows that if he wants to get players to be attracted to coming to Oklahoma City, then
they have to know that they aren't trapped.
Exactly. Yes. And they have to give them, unfortunately, you have to give them an out, but at the same time, if you build a roster well enough to where people don't want to leave, they won't leave. I mean, if Kevin Durant didn't leave, Al Horford would have came. We had Victor Oladipo as well, so Serge would have been replaced. You can build a roster here. You just got to bring in the right players, similar to the way San Antonio does it. You got to get the right people, the ones that want to be here. So, to be honest, if Oklahoma City's smart, you need to go ahead and just go out to Gordon Hayward. Just go get him. Go get him. Just go get him. Have him here. Let him teach with the young guys. I think it'd be fun setup. But I like Kelly Oubre. Him and Baisley. I think they'll be a pretty good 1-2 combo at 6'7", 6'8". You'll have some size and length out there at the wing position.
Your favorite
with Dort. That actually is what you always say. I've got you on tape, buddy.
Moving on.
And then you got SGA at 6'6" at the point. I mean, you've got a tall, rangy team, and as long as they can learn how to shoot, you might have some problems.
They'll be fun to watch. They'll still be fun to watch.
They'll be fun to watch. So
yeah,